Part 3, Additional Heavy Vehicle Operator Training, Fort Dix, New Jersey. We had the graduation ceremony on 27th March 1989, and 2 days later we were on a bus to Fort Dix. At least this time we were on a chartered bus, more like a Greyhound, and we all got a seat. Fort Dix was a little more than 5 hours away. We had packed everything, said our goodbyes, and started going. A few of my classmates were being shipped right to their units, but most of us had to go to this training because we would be driving a fuel truck in some capacity at our permanent unit. Approaching my third Army post in just under 6 months, I was surprised at how similar they all looked. The gate always looked the same, with a little shack for the soldiers and a big brick wall at the entrance. There were always forests as well surrounding them. However, the thing that stood out the most for me was the design of the buildings. It is as if they hired the same architect to build every building on every post. Long, narrow buildings in rows with the same boring green or white drab colors. What restaurants they did have on post were always the same. There was always at least one Burger King on post. We arrived in the barracks and we were immediately greeted by our new drill sergeants. They yelled, some getting us ready and moving, but it wasn't too bad. We got up to the second floor of our new building and things had changed. The rooms were smaller. I was assigned a room for 8 soldiers that housed the usual bunk beds and wall lockers. The latrines were at the end of the hall. I was with all my buddies from AIT. It didn't hit me until later, but I was the only white guy in a room with 7 black guys. Most of them were physically stronger and taller than me, but these were my buddies, so no worries. The training was to start in a few days and run 4 weeks, not what the rumor mill had told us, which had varied from 1 week to 12. 21 and knee-deep in shit. I was hoping for a relaxing evening that first day in. I failed to mention earlier that the travel day was on my 21st birthday. I have celebrated with others in the past on this day, and I guarantee you that all of them had a better time than I did that day. As we unpacked, the drill sergeant entered. "Drill sergeant on the floor!" someone yelled, and we all jumped to our feet. "Soldiers, welcome to my unit. As you know, my unit is always at the top of the list when it comes to how we perform." Oh shit, here it comes again. "You will always keep my barracks in tip-top shape, or you won't be allowed out of this building. You want to go party at your clubs on weekends? Fine, fine. But you will make sure my barracks are perfect before then. Is this understood?" "Yes, drill sergeant," we echoed in unison. "Tonight, you will clean my latrines, and I expect them to be perfect," he continued. "Yes, drill sergeant," we echoed in unison again. "I will be back at 0800 to inspect the latrines. Now, at ease," he stated as he exited the room. "Fuck," one of the soldiers said once the drill sergeants were out of the range. "Yeah, god damn it, another fucking drill sergeant who wants to be the fucking best," another complained. He took the fucking words right out of my mouth. So that night, on my 21st birthday, when I should have been enjoying a celebration, maybe out at a Burger King or at a club, I was knee-deep in the shit cleaning the fucking latrines, all 10 of them on the floor. Happy birthday to me. Training, but a different kind of training. The 4 weeks of training was like nothing I had before. The whole focus was on driving, vehicles, and safety. We would progress to a different kind of vehicle each week. The first week started with these little 2-seater Jeeps. They weren't very powerful. We would follow the drill sergeant around the course, practicing braking and turning. It was boring stuff. I mean, I had my own car when I was 16 and a half, and I loved to drive, so I'd spent many hours driving through the mountains of Colorado. The weather at Fort Dix was better than at Fort Lee, and while we did have some rainstorms, it wasn't too bad. I guess I could get a job at a car wash. Every day at the end of training, we took the vehicles we used to the car wash. Oh yes, you are probably thinking we just went through the full service one, right? Hell no. We were the car washers. One of us would pull the vehicle into the washing area, and we would get out the scrub brushes and soap and get to it. There was a lot of mud on some of the roads they made us take. I wish that some of my fellow trainees would just try to avoid the big puddles to lessen our work each day. This was where I again noticed the slackers. They were the ones that would hold the hose or just stand a little bit away from the rest of the group with their sponges, not doing shit. And again, I saw how a few women would find a way to do nothing. They would hang with the training sergeants shooting the shit, flashing their eyes at the men, laughing at their jokes, and guess what? When the day was over, they were still clean and dry. Damn, I wish I had those abilities. Some women were even tougher than the men, though. I will tell you more about that later. I guess I'm fully trained on how to wash vehicles now. Chili T is born. One of the things I loved about our hurry up and wait time was the training sergeants were more relaxed and just let us hang out when we were on breaks. The men in my room loved to sing and dance. They would get up in this big group dancing around, and then each of them would go into a circle and say something about themselves. For example, my chant, which wasn't very good, was, "My name is Travis, yeah, I am the baddest, yeah, and if you try me, yeah, you won't survive, all right, all right, all right." And I never had the harmony, the rhythm, or the style of my buddies, but I loved the whole experience and I would dance right along with them. For some reason, they thought my dancing was different, crazy, or something, and that was when I got my nickname, Chili T. They would say, "Go Chili," and I would jump in the middle and start dancing. My family gets a good laugh now when they hear me say it, but it was a time in my life when there was peace and fun. This training had a lot of downtime. Sometimes I would get weird looks from the other white guys in the unit, wondering why I would hang out with black guys and not my own kind. I still can't believe how much racism there really was with some of them. I just don't get it. These guys were great, and I would go to war with them if I had to. Their color did not matter to me one bit. What did matter was their culture. It was interesting, lively, and fun. Driving a semi-truck. After the Jeeps, we moved up to semi-trucks. There was a lot more to learn here in this unit. Semi-trucks required learning how to remove the trailer and ensure that it was placed on the ground properly so that when you pulled away, it wouldn't topple over. We spent a lot of time learning how to drop the trailer feet at the front, then unplug the electrical power and unhitch the trailer from the truck. The system and steps were lengthy, but after going over them many times, I could remember them. The biggest challenge was trying to back up the trailer and park it. This required using your side mirrors well and turning the wheel in an opposite direction you want the trailer to go, not in the way you would think it should go. The truck was tough to drive forward, I'm not going to lie. The trailer was long and you had to be careful taking corners by swinging wide. I was good at the left turns, but I tended to cut the right turns a little short. Crash. Shit! Did we hit something? We drove in teams of two. One would drive for a while and then switch off halfway in between. Riding along was boring, but luckily we got to drive out on the country roads on the Army post. One day we were riding along and another group was coming towards us. The other group looked dangerously close to us on such a narrow road. That is when it happened. The other truck swerved over enough into our lane to hit our mirrors. Ours shattered with a loud bang. Damn, we didn't know what to do. We pulled over and waited for the training sergeant in the last truck. He came and saw the damage and we explained the situation. We got back in the truck and we were back on the road. Never sure what happened after that, but we didn't get in trouble, luckily. Nightclubs and fun. Being 21 has its advantages. The Army post did have an 18 and over bar and nightclub for soldiers. With our new privileges at Fort Dix, if we didn't have duty, we could go anywhere we wanted if we reported for formation each morning. For some, this meant walking in the door after dawn to get into formation, but for me it just meant getting into some civilian clothes and going somewhere other than the rec rooms. I was getting to know my buddies in the room well, since we were all training all day and in the barracks in the evening. They were great, and I learned a lot from them. I am not sure if they liked all my questions or not, but I just wanted to absorb as much as I could about their culture and their beliefs. I'm not saying I wanted to be black per se, but frankly, being white is so flat. There is just not much of a culture there. Sorry if it sounds like I'm white bashing, but sure, we have our commercial holidays, but what else is there? There's no special language, just English, and we are also privileged just because of our skin. They told me stories about the ghetto, about growing up in huge families without enough to eat or drink, where they would be beat by their stepdad just because they forgot to take out the trash, and where they couldn't walk down the street without being accosted by the police. They taught me about music like Luther Vandross and EPMD. They would sing the most beautiful harmonies, soulful and with rhythm that I could only dream of having. One of the songs we sung as a group when we gathered on breaks was Always and Forever by Heatwave. Always and forever, I'll always be true. Sorry, just had to jump in there. The words ring so true about love, the love I hope to have one day while I waited through all this training and prepared for the future. I can still hear them singing it now. Every day, love me your own special way. Melt all my heart away with a smile. Anyway, we headed to the club. Taxis are cheap when you split them with so many guys. We made it to the club and I ordered my first drink, a Coors beer. I have never been a huge fan of beer in general, but to be there buying it with my military ID and knowing that I was legal was amazing. I got carded, but it was cool. The bar was not really a nightclub. There was a small dance floor and it was extremely dark in there. The problem was no women. I mean, literally no women. A room full of guys sitting there waiting for something to happen that never would. Clearly, the on-post nightclubs were not the best places to meet women. I stayed late with all of them and we staggered to a cab well after 2 a.m. I was tired, lonely, but happy to be 21 and legal. Learning more about music. As I mentioned earlier, the buddies in my room loved music. The problem was they played the same music over and over. One guy had a small portable cassette tape player and he only had 3 tapes, I think. I can't tell how many times I would come into the room and hear EPMD playing Strictly Business and wondered if there was a way I could buy them a new cassette just so I could listen to something else. But here's the thing. My buddies were willing to share and willing to teach, so when I asked about a song, they would tell me the meaning. They would help me to understand the anger and the desire to feel the power that white people have. To be able to walk down a street or drive a nice car and not be confronted just because they were black. They were told they were free and that they were equal under the law, but they haven't been treated that way ever. It is just wrong. I have never understood it and never will. Learning about cultures brings the world closer, and we can all learn from each other if we first put our ridiculous stereotypes away and listen. I am not going to lie, there were times when I would walk in the room in the first week and think, and they would all look up at me. I was intimidated by them at first, but then instead of turning it to anger, I turned it to listening and learning. Something changed in that room over those 4 weeks. I was accepted as one of them. This wouldn't change after training. It turned out my closest friend in the regular duty was also black, and he will not be forgotten for what he taught me. The do-rag. African American men seem to have a very special relationship with their hair. Even if it is short, it seems like there is a lot of work that they must do every day and night, from brushing it often to the different products they use on their hair. In addition, they all wear a do-rag to bed to keep the style in place. It is a thin fabric that goes over your head and ties in the back, hanging down like a mullet. I still have my own do-rag, and it is fun to wear. It keeps your head warm, and it just looks cool. Driving a Hemet. By the last week of school, I was getting good at driving the different vehicles. I was acing the tests, and it looked like it would come down to June and I again, racing for the Honor Graduate Award. This time, though, we were told there could be only one. I wasn't giving up and had a perfect score on everything going into Hemet training. The heavy expanded mobility tactical truck, Hemet, HEMTT, is hard to describe. It is as long as a semi-truck, but is built as one complete unit with 8 wheels and a cab that sits high up on the vehicle. The crazy thing about the design is the cab, because instead of a bench seat, it is 2 bucket seats with a big middle area for the engine that is raised so high that you can barely look over the top to see the passenger. You must yell to get to the other person's attention, and you can't see anything either. There is even a little window at your feet just so you can see the ground on your side. The Hemet is utilized to carry fuel, lots of fuel. It was mobile and self-contained. Driving it was a new experience and a challenge. The seats bounced around a lot, and I've never found it to be a comfortable ride. Turning corners was also a big challenge, as you spun the wheel around and around trying to get to turn before you pulled into the road. We practiced a lot on this vehicle all week, in fact. We were all getting tired of driving it, but we knew we were getting closer to the end. Field training. Dear family, hey, I got a chance to be on phone guard duty on Thursday in the field, so I thought I would write a letter and say hi and to tell you what I've been doing. Yesterday we went on a refueling mission and filled up all the AIT students' trucks. We are supposed to get ambushed on Tuesday night, but it is raining hard, so we moved into the motor pool building in the field. A lot of the time we spent filling sandbags and other details, which makes me kind of upset because I thought we would be doing a lot more refueling operations like we did on FTX at Fort Lee. Right now, most of our class is out on a refueling mission with mop gear and protective masks on. We have to keep these gas masks on for 4 hours. We leave here at 0800 tomorrow morning, so I'm not complaining. The really hard part is I can't wear my glasses, so I can't see anything. Anyway, I can't wait to get home. I miss you all so much. Tell everyone I said hi. Final testing, or you better not fuck up or you will start over. As always, it seemed in training, they continually remind us that if you fail, you will go back to training and not graduate with your class. They put added pressure on all of us, but without a way to get in extra study time, there wasn't much we could do. It was driver's training. The training was in multiple steps and stations. We went to each station where the training sergeant was waiting for us to take the test. It started with a simple driving test with the Jeeps, easy peasy. Then the next station was the steps to unhook the trailer and reconnect it. Again, it was challenging, but if you followed the steps in the order we were trained in, it was a perfect score. The two toughest challenges were after lunch, backing the trailer into a small area. I had done this so many times that I just followed the exact steps the training sergeant had given me. I hesitated a moment. You always did when you tried to remember which way to turn the wheel in comparison to what you were seeing in the mirror. But then it was over, and I was on to the last challenge. We had driven all over the post with the HEMTT, but now the time to go on an actual road test course. We rode with the training sergeant, and he commanded us as we went. There were cones set up so he could see how we did. My hands were shaking, as I wanted the Distinguished Honor Grad so bad. As I said earlier, the right turns had always been my downfall, and they were again that day. I took the left turns just fine, swinging wide as to avoid the cones and to get into my lane properly. However, in my haste to finish the course, I turned too quickly on the right turn and wheeled right over a cone. Now, I probably wouldn't have done any damage as I wasn't up on the sidewalk or anything, but it was enough to see the sergeant make a note in his pad. Damn it, my perfect score was lost. The day was done, and we all gathered in the break area, many people smoking and just talking shit back and forth about the day's test. June had also had some trouble on the HEMTT course and on the trailer, so I thought maybe there was a chance to pull out the victory. But the good news was that our entire group had passed. We were all graduating, and no one would be held back. Permanent unit, here we all come. Distinguished Honor Graduate. Like our AIT graduation, we all gathered in a small room dressed in our Class A uniforms, with all our medals shining and ready. This room seemed a little less kept and utilized than in AIT. The ceremony was short, and then the announcement came. I had won the Distinguished Honor Graduate for the class. Holy shit! This one was serious too because it came with a special medal for my uniform, the Army Achievement Medal. Here is what the award said. Department of the Army, this is to certify that the Secretary of the Army has awarded the Army Achievement Medal to Private First Class Michael G. Travis for exceptional outstanding performance of duty while assigned to the 30th Transportation Battalion, 5th Training Brigade from 3 April 1989 to 5 May 1989. Private Travis showed extreme competence and talent far exceeding that of his peers while serving as a student in the HEMTT Operator Maintainer Additional Skill Identifier course. He has earned the distinction of the Distinguished Honor Graduate for Class 47-89 for performing far above the requirements of his duties as a student. Private Travis has surpassed the standards for the Army Physical Readiness Test and the end of the course comprehension test. His remarkable achievements, profound sense of professionalism, and devotion to the mission are an inspiration to all and reflect great credit upon himself, this unit, and the United States Army. Damn. At this moment, I was the shit. Applause all around and respect from my peers. It was time to celebrate, that was for sure. In the end, I decided to take the extra leave and head home for a week before going to permanent duty. It was tough to say goodbye to my roomies at the end of the day. Most of them had chosen to travel directly to their units, which would be paid for by the Army, and forgo taking leave time. I respected each and every one of them in my room. They had taught me so much and left me with a different level of understanding of what it was like to be a black man in America and in the Army. Private June and I also had a moment to hug, and I got to thank her for pushing me so hard for so many months. We both had learned so much, and while she was off to some unit in the South, I was headed west, and we would probably never see each other again. I had beaten her by only 1 percentage point. It was backing the trailer that had cost her. I must admit, I got lucky in my test and was lucky to have bested her. I felt bad to have won, but know that I'd earned the win and it was time to celebrate. Leave in Colorado. I might have changed some from basic training, but I was even more changed when I got back to Boulder in May of 1989. I must admit, even now, that I no longer talked like a white boy from Colorado. My language was rough, and there was a lot of black talk in it. Hey, you can't go 4 weeks in a room with 7 black guys and come out without some changes. I had 5 months of PT, 5 to 6 days a week under my belt. I was well built, strong, and confident. I reconnected with my old friends at a volleyball party my parents threw in my honor. The sun was hot, the drinks were cold, and it was great fun. But most of all, I got to talk to a girl that I'd known since high school. We had been friends forever, but she always had a boyfriend, and I was too much of a wimp to try and change that. We flirted throughout the day, and in the end, we spent most of my leave together just hanging out and spending time together. I have always been good at math in my head, and my 7 day leave went super fast. Every few hours on leave, I would calculate in my mind the time when the plane flight was and when I would have to leave. I wouldn't be coming back to Colorado or taking a vacation for a long time. This made me drift off sometimes. Even though I was with my friends, it was always in the back of my mind. I did notice that something had changed between my friends and me. While many of them were still in the same place they were when I left, I was a changed man. I could see years in advance, knowing where I was headed.